Hello everyone and welcome to video 3. We're here to talk to Bruce Mason of MFP today, who's our recommended partner for FIA and SDA applications. Bruce is going to share a bit of detail as to what is the most efficient way to get those applications successfully approved. And we'll just tell you a little bit more about why those applications are necessary and how that works. Maybe I'll just allow Bruce a moment to introduce himself. Welcome, Bruce.
Well, thanks so much for the opportunity, Bilal. What a great platform to be on and to just share a little bit with the listeners about the FIA, SDA, and how all of this fits into the offering from Stewards for the Income Booster Fund. So I think first things first, the question is, why do we actually have SDAs, FIAs, and all of these processes in terms of being able to invest into the fund? I think the short answer to that is in South Africa, we have exchange controls, which means we need to go through a process and request permission to send funds offshore, essentially. The product, as the listeners would have heard from other videos in the series, requires that we invest in foreign currency in order to take advantage of the opportunity. In order to do that, every South African taxpayer has a single discretionary allowance of 1 million rand a year. That is a no questions asked ability for somebody to go and purchase Forex, import goods or services, travel overseas, do whatever they want to do in terms of buying foreign currency. I think the important thing to remember here is that anything you do, purchasing Forex or importing, investing in this opportunity, all of those things count towards the 1 million SDA. And it's important that the users either know that they need to keep track of all of the activities with regard to purchasing Forex in a year, or to try and aim to use one authorized dealer. And in that way, it just makes the administration and tracking of the 1 million amount a lot easier. I think once people have exhausted the discretionary allowance, they are able to unlock another 10 million rand a year allowance for taking advantage of this opportunity. But it does require a clearance process, and that is known as the Foreign Investment Allowance. So the important thing to note here is where SARS fits into the equation and where the authorized dealer, who is effectively an agent of the Reserve Bank of South Africa. So on the SARS side of things, that is where your application happens for your FIA and your PIN certificate is issued, your PIN number, which actually allows the authorized dealer to move the money offshore for you. So SARS looks effectively at a few key points of information when we apply for your FIA. The first is that the taxpayer has to be compliant. So if you have old returns or historical debt or anything in what we'd say red on your compliance work list, you are not going to be able to apply for this allowance. Once the taxpayer is compliant, they need to show the source of their wealth. So an 18-year-old having their first job and getting a loan from mom and dad is not really going to cut it in this equation. They would need to demonstrate that they have a source of wealth built up over time, and the authorized dealer is going to request backup documentation to support that view. So if you were an income earner, they're going to ask for things like your pay slips. You're going to need to show the accumulation of your wealth over a number of years. And then the second very important thing is you have to show that you've got a liquid source of funds. So in other words, if you're applying for an FIA for 5 million rand, we would need to demonstrate that there's 5 million rands of cash or near cash assets on hand. So if, for example, somebody had a massive property portfolio, but there was no access bond against that portfolio, that is not going to count towards the ability to apply for FIA. On the other hand, if they have a personal bond for their home, the bond is worth 1.5 million rand, but there's R1 million available against that facility, then that R1 million would count towards the FIA. And then other things like share portfolios, unit trusts, pretty much most near cash investments would work. excluding things like pension-related products. So your RA, unfortunately, is not accessible until you're 55. Your provident fund at work, those kind of assets will fall outside of that loop.
One thing that clients often get confused about is that they think if they want to access their 10 million rand allowance that they have to do all 10 million rand at one point in time, which is not the case. You can do multiple smaller applications to the value of 10 million rand. Even if you only have 500,000 rand liquid assets available, you can do multiple applications of 500,000 rand over the course of a 12-month period that will then draw down against your full 10 million rand annual allowance.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Graham, and that possibly scares a few people off when they're like, hey, I've only got assets of 600,000 total or even 500,000 rand. It doesn't mean you can't take advantage of the opportunity, and I think possibly covering the costs involved might be an opportune time as well. So it's 500 rand in an FIA application ongoing, and then we have a light option where if someone, for example, has all their liquid cash tied up in their trading fund after using their SDA and it's below 500,000 rand, then we do offer a 350 rand option for that, provided that is the only statement of their wealth. It obviously just simplifies the process for us. The first application is slightly more expensive. It's 1,500 rand, and the main reason for that is taking care of the compliance issues, the gathering of the 3 years of assets and liabilities, proving source of wealth and source of funds. That is typically where the majority of the time and effort is spent in setting up. Okay, so just coming back to what we are saying, Graham, once we've ticked all those boxes, we've got somebody who's compliant, we have a source of wealth, we've proved that, and we have the source of funds, we would then go ahead and actually make the application on e-filing. I think one other important point to note here is that while MFP has walked a journey with Stewards and we are a recommended partner, we're certainly not an exclusive partner in terms of being able to offer this service. So people that already have a tax practitioner that they know and trust, they don't necessarily have to move across to MFP to get this done. It would be a simple case of having that chat with their person, their tax provider, and they would be able to apply for this on their behalf.
We've had some investors who are chartered accountants and who know how to use their own e-filing and are able to do their own FI application. So you're most welcome to do it on your own or through your tax practitioner. But our experience from a Stewards perspective is that MFP has been the most efficient at getting these FIAs successfully delivered.
Yeah, that's 100% B, and I think thanks for bringing that up. That's also probably something I might have covered earlier on, but probably that question is a good lead-in. My finance partner was really created out of the need to give business people more than they were getting from their accountants. So while the FIA process is something we're quite happy to support, it's certainly not the core of why MFP exists. We exist principally to help business people, and one of the key things there is education. So if somebody were a chartered accountant and really just wanted to pick up the phone and say, oh, I'm mostly there, but I'm getting hung up on one or two little points here and there, what can you do? That's a discussion that we already have with a lot of guys, and we're quite happy to continue in that way with people going forward. So yeah, that's absolutely no problem at all.
We're going to leave it there for now, and we'll come back with a bit more details on your allowances and your taxes in video 4. Thank you.